So the last time we had the bike on the channel, he failed his MOT because of his steering catch. And I said this: the bike's staying at the bike shop, they're going to straighten that out for me, and then they're going to give me a ring when it's done, and we'll get that failure turned into a pass. So we waited 4 days, and then the garage rang me. I'm looking at the number, I'm thinking, yes, this is the garage, the bike's done, excellent. So I take the call, and the garage said, we've tried to straighten out your steering catch and it snapped. So we had to go back down to the garage and collect the bike because that steering catch was going to need welding back on. So once I got the bike back home, I took a look behind the nose, and it became very apparent just how far behind the nose and how high up that bracket actually was meant to be. And here you can see it from above. That's where the bracket's supposed to be. If we just put that bracket in place, there you go, you can actually see what it's meant to look like, and there's the bracket itself. So at this point I start to realise just how much work's involved. I need to get that nose cone off, but the nose cone's held on by the side panels and the cockpit panels and the lower panels and the upper panels, you know, the fuel tank, the seat. And at this point I start to despair, like, why the fuck's this happening to me? And I caught myself. And it's important that you catch yourself when like this happens, because otherwise you're just going to focus on the negative, and everything's going to seem 10 times worse than it actually is. So I caught myself, and I'm glad that I did. I caught myself and I started thinking about the positives in the situation. I remember a time when I didn't have a motorbike. Now I've got a motorbike, he's there right in front of me. And yeah, it sucks that he failed his MOT. It really does. And the amount of work that's involved. But then I remind myself, it's just one thing. He's failed his MOT on one thing. And yeah, that's a huge thing, but we've got the skills to do this job. And I'm telling myself this, I've taken all the fairing off this bike in the past. We've got the skills to get this job done. Yes, he's going to need welding, but I've got a welder and I can weld. And that gave me the confidence and the enthusiasm to get into the right mindset, get into that positive mindset in order to get the job done. And here's a top tip for you: don't be afraid to take photos. If you're taking multiple things off of a bike or a car and you're not sure if you're going to remember how to put them back together, grab yourself some photos. You might think it's stupid, you may never even use these photographs, but I'll tell you, when you come to put this car or bike back together and you can't remember how it goes together, you're going to be glad you took those photographs. So at this point we ended up with something. Well, we ended up with a naked bike, didn't we? There's no other way of describing it really. It was a naked bike. But it did mean that I could finally actually get in and see exactly where this bracket had snapped off from. And quite clearly, someone has welded this back on in the past. And I have no doubt that whoever welded this bracket back on in the past, they didn't strip the bike down. They simply put the welding gun up behind the nose cone, crossed their fingers and pulled the trigger a few times. And they got lucky, but that's why it didn't hold, obviously. Now I was determined to get the welds ground back down and get this bracket welded back on and painted on the night that I was doing it, because I wanted that paint to dry. I was never going to leave it bare. I wanted that paint to dry overnight so I could get in there and get the bike rebuilt the next day. And just like that, we're on our way back to the bike shop for our retest. And I'm not going to cross my fingers because I did that last time and it clearly doesn't work. And just like that, we've finally turned that fail into a pass. It's been a long road, but it was so worth it. When I think about the fun that I have on this bike, it was totally worth it. And it was totally worth it, even if it was a right pain in the ass. When I think about the feeling of freedom that this bike gives me, oh my gosh, look at that for a view. Absolutely beautiful. Yes, the feeling of freedom that this bike gives me and the fun that I have on this bike. Yeah, I really wish I hadn't had to do all that work to get the MOT, but no matter which way I cut it, it was totally worth it. Oh man, on days like today, I could just stay out all day with the bike. Places like this, and weather like this. Yeah, doesn't make you want to go home, does it?